Welcome to the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative Town Hall. My name is Anita Wu, your moderator this afternoon. Today, we have the creme de la creme of ASEAN youth right here, gathered in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, in University Malaya's Tunku Chancellor Hall. Having produced 2 Malaysian prime ministers, this venue is no stranger to young leaders such as yourselves. We are here because as youth under the age of 35, we currently represent 60% of the ASEAN population. And being the single largest demographic in ASEAN, we not only have an impact on our respective nations, but also across the region. From a global perspective, although ASEAN covers just 3% of land area, ASEAN is a single identity would rank as the 7th largest economy in the world. However, each nation within ASEAN is in a different place in our journeys towards development. Each journey unique. Deep poverty persists in the region, but one of the leaders tackling this issue is Indonesia's Dr. Sri Mulyani Indrawati, who is currently Managing Director of World Bank Group. Similarly, although the record on upholding human rights and democratic governance within the region still leaves much to be desired, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's heroic struggle and triumph proves that mountains can be moved with determination and tenacity. ASEAN young entrepreneurs don't have to look far to know that success is within their reach, as AirAsia's Tan Sri Tony Fernandes carved his success from within this very region. Moreover, with a thriving scene in Southeast Asia, creative scene, who knows, the next Jimmy Choo could be amongst us this very moment. As our region faces the challenges inherent in a rapidly developing nation and economy, where perspectives on education, business, environment must change with the times, we should use our ingenuity and entrepreneurial spirit to change how we plan to overcome these obstacles and emerge stronger than ever. Southeast Asia is one of the most diversity-rich regions, home to an array of cultures and histories. And as we know, it was once even home to President Obama. The future of ASEAN will lie in its ability to not only celebrate this diversity, but to harness it as a key building block for our success. Today, the President himself will be taking questions directly from those present here, as well as questions submitted by you through Facebook and Twitter from around the region. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming to stage the 44th President of the United States, President Barack Obama.
Hello, everybody. Oh, good afternoon. Selamat petang. Please, everybody have a seat. It is wonderful to be here, and it is wonderful to see all these outstanding young people here. I want to thank, first of all, the University of Malaya for hosting us. I want to thank the Malaysian people for making us feel so welcome. Anita, thank you for helping to moderate. Yeah, these trips are usually all business for me. But every once in a while, I want to have some fun. So I try to hold an event like this where I get to hear directly from young people like you. Because I firmly believe that you will shape the future of your countries and the future of this region. And I'm glad to see so many students who are here today, including young people from across Southeast Asia. And I know some of you are joining us online and through social media, and you'll be able to ask me questions too. Now, this is my 5th trip to Asia as president. And I plan to be back again later this year, not just because I enjoy the sights and the food, although I do, but because a few years ago I made a deliberate and strategic decision as President of the United States that America will play a larger, more comprehensive role in this region's future. I know some still ask what this strategy is all about, so before I answer your questions, I just want to answer that one question: why Asia is so important to America, and why Southeast Asia has been a particular focus. And finally, why I believe that young people like you have to be the ones who lead us forward. Now, many of you know this part of the world has special meaning for me. I was born in Hawaii, right in the middle of the Pacific. I lived in Indonesia as a boy. Hey! This is the Indonesian contingent. Yeah. Hey, that's where they're from. You know, my sister Maya was born in Jakarta. She's married to a man whose parents were born here. My brother-in-law's father in Sandakan, and his mom in Kudat. And my mother spent years working in the villages of Southeast Asia, helping women buy sewing machines or gaining an education so that they could better earn a living. And as I mentioned last night to His Majesty the King and the Prime Minister, I'm very grateful to the Islamic Arts Museum Malaysia for hosting an exhibit that showcased some of my mother's batik collection, because it meant a lot to her, and it's part of the connection that I felt and I continue to feel to this region. So the Asia Pacific, with its rich cultures and beautiful traditions and vibrant society, that's all part of who I am. It helps shape how I see the world. And it's also helped to shape my approach as president. And while our government, our financial centers, many of our traditions began along the Atlantic coast, America's always been a Pacific nation as well. Our biggest, most populous state is on the Pacific coast. And for generations, wave of immigrants from all across Asia, from different countries and races and religions, have come to America and contributed to our success. From our earliest years, when our first president, George Washington, sent a trade mission to China, through last year, when the aircraft carrier that bears his name, the George Washington, helped with typhoon relief in the Philippines, America's always had a history with Asia, and we've got a future with Asia. This is the world's fastest growing region. Over the next 5 years, nearly half of all economic growth outside the United States is projected to come from right here in Asia. That means this region is vital to creating jobs and opportunity, not only for yourselves, but also for the American people. And any serious leader in America recognizes that fact. And because you're home to more than half of humanity, Asia will largely define the contours of the century ahead, whether it's going to be marked by conflict or cooperation, by human suffering or human progress. So this is why America's refocused our attention on the vast potential of the Asia-Pacific region. My country's come through a decade in which we fought 2 wars and an economic crisis that hurt us badly, along with countries all over the globe. But we've now ended the war in Iraq. Our war in Afghanistan will end this year. Our businesses are steadily creating new jobs, and we've begun addressing the challenges that have weighed down our economy for too long, reforming our healthcare and financial systems, raising standards in our schools, building a clean energy economy, cutting our fiscal deficits by more than half since I took office. So we've been busy at home. The crisis still confronts us in other parts of the world, from Middle East to Ukraine. But I want to be very clear. Let me be clear about this, because some people have wondered whether, because of what happens in Ukraine or what happens in the Middle East, whether this will sideline our strategy. It has not. We are focused, and we're going to follow through on our interest in promoting a strong U.S.-Asia relationship. America has responsibilities all around the world, and we're glad to embrace those responsibilities. And yes, sometimes we have a political system of our own, and it can be easy to lose sight of the long view. But we have been moving forward on our rebalance to this part of the world by opening ties of commerce and negotiating our most ambitious trade agreement, by increasing our defense and educational exchange cooperation, and modernizing our alliances, by participating fully in regional institutions like the East Asia Summit, building deeper partnerships with emerging powers like Indonesia and Vietnam, and increasingly we're building these partnerships throughout Southeast Asia. Since President Johnson's visit here to Malaysia in 1966, there's perhaps no region on earth that has changed so dramatically. Old dictatorships have crumbled. New voices have emerged. Controlled economies have given way to free markets. What used to be small villages, kampongs, are now gleaming skyscrapers. The 10 nations that make up ASEAN are home to nearly 1 in 10 of the world's citizens. And when you put those countries together, you're the 7th largest economy in the world, the 4th largest market for American exports, the #1 destination for American investment in Asia. And I'm proud to be the first American president to meet regularly with all 10 ASEAN leaders, and I intend to do it every year that I remain president. By the way, I want to congratulate Malaysia on its turn to assume the chairmanship of ASEAN next year. You know, Malaysia plays a central role in this region that will only keep growing over time, with an ability to promote economic growth and opportunity and be an anchor of stability and maritime security. Now, one of the things that makes this region so interesting is its diversity. You know, that diversity creates a unique intersection of humanity. People from so many ethnic groups and backgrounds and religions and political beliefs. It gives Malaysia, as one primary example, the chance to prove, as America constantly tries to prove, that nations are stronger and more successful when they work to uphold the civil rights and political rights and human rights of all their citizens. That's why over the past few years, Prime Minister Najib and I have worked to broaden and deepen the relationship between our two countries. In the same spirit of bekerja sama, that I think so many of you embody. The United States remains the #1 investor in Malaysia. We're partnering to promote security in shipping lanes. We're making progress on the Trans-Pacific Partnership to boost trade that supports good jobs and prosperity in both our countries. Today, I'm very pleased that we've forged a comprehensive partnership that lays the foundation for even closer cooperation for years to come. But our strategy is more than just security alliances or trade agreements. It's also about building genuine relationships between the peoples of Asia and the peoples of the United States, especially young people. We want you to be getting to know the young people of the United States and partnering well into the future in science and technology and entrepreneurship and education. One program that we're proud of here in Malaysia is the Fulbright English Teaching Assistance Program. Great. There we go. Over the past 2 years, nearly 200 Americans have come here, and they haven't just taught English, they've made lifelong friendships with their students and their communities. Now, one of these Americans, I'm told, was a young woman named Kelsey from a city in Boston, the city of Boston. Last year, after the Boston Marathon was attacked, she taught her students all about her hometown, its history and its culture. She taught them a phrase that's popular in Boston, wicked awesome. So that was part of the English curriculum. And so her students began to feel like a place that this place, Boston, that was a world away, was actually something they understood and they connected to and they cared about. So they responded by writing get well cards and sending them to hospitals where many of the victims were being treated. Partnerships like those remind us that the relationship between nations is not just defined by governments, but it's defined by people, especially the young people who will determine the future long after those of us who are currently in positions of power leave the stage. And that's especially true in Southeast Asia because almost 2/3 of the population in this region is under 35 years old. This is a young part of the world. And I've seen the hope and the energy and optimism of your generation wherever I travel, from Rangoon to Jakarta to here in KL. I've seen the desire for conflict resolution through diplomacy and not war. I've seen the desire for prosperity through entrepreneurship, not corruption or cronyism. I've seen a longing for harmony, not by holding down one segment of society, but by upholding the rights of every human being, regardless of what they look like, or who they love, or how they pray. And so you give me hope. Robert Kennedy once said, "It is a revolutionary world that we live in, and thus it is young people who must take the lead." And I believe it is precisely because you've come of age in such a world, with fewer walls, with instant information. You know, you have the world at your fingertips, and you can change it for the better. And I believe that together we can do things that your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents would have never imagined. So today I'm proud that we're launching a new Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative to increase and enhance America's engagement with young people across the region. You're part of this new effort. You're the next generation of leaders in government and civil society and business and the arts. Some of you have already founded nonprofit organizations to promote human rights or prevent human trafficking or encourage religious tolerance and interfaith dialogue. Some of you have started projects to educate young people on the environment and engage them to protect our air and our water and to prevent climate change. Some of you have been building your own ASEAN-wide network of young leaders to meet challenges like youth unemployment. And I know that some of you have been spending this weekend collaborating on solutions to these major issues. And over the next few months, across Southeast Asia, we're going to find ways to listen to young people about your ideas and the partnerships we can then build together to empower your efforts, develop new exchanges, connect young leaders across Southeast Asia with young Americans. So that's part of what we're starting here today. And before I take your questions, let me just close by sharing with you the future that I want to work for in this region, about where we want America's rebalance in the Asia-Pacific to lead, the work that we can do together. I believe that together we can make the Asia-Pacific more secure. You know, America has the strongest military in the world, but we don't seek conflict, we seek to keep the peace. We want a future where disputes are resolved peacefully and where bigger nations don't bully smaller nations. All nations are equal in the eyes of international law. We want to deepen our cooperation with other nations on issues like counterterrorism and privacy, but also humanitarian aid and disaster relief, which will help us respond quickly to catastrophes like the tsunami in Japan or the typhoon in the Philippines. We want to do that together. Together, we want to make the Asia-Pacific more prosperous, with more commerce and shared innovation and entrepreneurship. And we want to see broader and more inclusive development and prosperity. Through agreements like the TPP, we want to make sure nations in the Asia-Pacific can trade under rules that ensure fair access to markets and support jobs and economic growth for everybody, and set high standards for the protection of workers and the environment. Together, we want to make the Asia-Pacific and the world cleaner and more secure. You know, the nations of this region are uniquely threatened by climate change. No nation is immune to dangerous and disruptive weather patterns. So every nation is going to have to do its part. The United States is ready to do ours. Last year, I introduced America's first ever climate action plan to use more clean energy and less dirty energy and cut the dangerous carbon pollution that contributes to climate change. So we want to cooperate with countries in Southeast Asia to do the same, to combat the destruction of our forests. We can't condemn future generations to a planet that is beyond fixing. We can only do that together. Together we can make this world more just. You know, America is the world's oldest constitutional democracy. That means we're going to stand up for democracy. It's a part of who we are. And we do this not only because we think it's right, but because it's been proven to be the most stable and successful form of government. In recent decades, many Asian nations have shown that different nations can realize the promise of self-government in their own way. They have their own path. But we must recognize that democracies don't stop just with elections. They also depend on strong institutions and a vibrant civil society, an open political space, and tolerance of people who are different than you. We have to create an environment where the rights of every citizen, regardless of race or gender or religion or sexual orientation, are not only protected but respected. So we want a future where nations that are pursuing reform, like Myanmar, like Burma, consolidate their own democracy and allow for people of different faiths and ethnicities to live together in peace. We want to see open space for civil society in all our countries so that citizens can hold their governments accountable and improve their own communities. We want to work together to ensure that we're drawing on the potential of all our people, and that means ensuring women have full and equal access to opportunity, just like men. And to make sure we can sustain all these efforts, we want a future where we're building an architecture of institutions and relationships. For America, that always begins with our alliances, which serve as the cornerstone of our approach to the world. But we also want to work with organizations like ASEAN and in forums like APEC and the East Asia Summit to resolve disputes and forge new partnerships. And we want to cooperate with our old allies and our emerging partners and with China. We want to see a peaceful rise for China because we think it can and should contribute to the stability and prosperity that we all seek. So that's the shared future I want to see in the Asia Pacific. Now, America cannot impose that future. It's one that we need to build together in partnership with all the nations and peoples of the region, especially young people. That vision is within our reach if we're willing to work for it. You know, this world has its share of threats and challenges, and that's usually what makes the news. We know that progress can always be reversed, and that positive change is achieved not through passion alone, but through patient and persistent effort. But we've seen things change for the better in this region and around the world because of the effort of ordinary people. Together, working together. It's possible. We've seen it in the opportunity and progress that's been unleashed in this amazing part of the world. So I've only been in Malaysia for a day, but I've already picked up a new phrase. Malaysia boleh. Malaysia can do it. Now, I have to say we have a similar saying in America, yes, we can. That's the spirit in which I hope America and all the nations of Southeast Asia can work together, but it's going to depend on your generation to carry it forward. Because presidents and prime ministers, they can help lay the foundation, but you've got to build the future. So now, I want to hear directly from you. I want to hear your aspirations for your own lives, your hopes for your communities and your culture, what you think we can do together in the years to come. All right? Terima kasih banyak.